Hello, so we are doing a custom bootloader project for project 2 in our course Mobile Systems Architecture. And the goals which we have set for our own project is that we want to make a custom bootloader which can have its own functionality. So for the STM32 microcontroller, so instead of using the system bootloader which is provided by the developers, will make our own bootloader, which will have functionalities like erasing the flash memory, upgrading firmware, or loading multiple applications and executing applications as the user asks. So the custom bootloader is basically used as whenever we want to update some firmware and make updates to the existing firmware. So in that, the main things which we need to take care of, or the goals of this project, are that uh, new applications could be flashed into the memory as we want, and those should be flashed at different locations. So the vector table addressing should be taken care of, and also the offset should be according offset should be set in the vector table. Modifications need to be done in the linker script for the applications and for the bootloader, so that it could be loaded to a particular location. And the flash erasing, so memory protection, um, taking care of how memory is allocated for each application. All these are the goals for the projects to be taken care of. And we will make a bootloader in which we will load applications one by one, and we will tell how many applications are currently loaded, and the user can ask to run any application which he or she wants to run. So that is the goal of the project. So in the STM32 based microcontrollers, there are basically three boot modes, which is X0, 0, 1, 1, 1, and there will be boot 0 pin and boot 1 bit. Boot 1 is a bit in the flash ODR register in the STM microcontroller, and boot 0 is a pin present on board. So there are basically three modes. Over here, you can see that this is the entire memory map, and these are the addresses for their respective sections, and this is where the code resides. So in the booting process, boot 0 and boot 1 pins are checked, and accordingly, the boot mode is activated. For the first one, that is X0, the boot is done from the flash memory. So the code from the flash memory is traced into this 0 address, and it is executed from there. And accordingly, as the boot modes are changed, so when it's 0, 1, the code from system memory is traced over to the initial address, and when it is 1, 1, the code from SRAM is traced into the code from SRAM is traced into the initial starting address. So these are the three boot modes which are present in STM32 microcontrollers. So for the communication purposes, we will be using two protocols, which is UART and XModem. So UART will be used for serial communication, and XModem is basically used for transferring files between different machines. So for transferring a file from the host machine, that will be our laptop or a computer, to send it to the microcontroller, we will be using XModem protocol. So XModem is basically a file transfer protocol which breaks down the entire data which you want to send into number of packets, and these packets are sent in series. So this protocol is basically receiver driven. So the transmitter does not send unless the receiver asks for any data. So initially, so the receiver will send the NAK NAK signal to the transmitter to tell him to tell the transmitter that I want some packet. And at the start, the transmitter will send SOH, which is start of header, to indicate that this is the starting of the data to be sent, and this is the first packet. And then it will send packets one by one till it receives a NAK from the receiver. So NAK from the receiver side will be that the packet was not correct, or it was not received, or there was some fault with the packet. So it asks the transmitter to resend it. And if there are multiple NAKs coming, then it asks for aborting the process, which is basically the CAN signal, to cancel the transmission of the data because there were a couple of errors. So when the packet is sent to from the transmitter to the receiver will do basically three checks. One is basically checking the packet number, what the packet number is of the current packet coming in. So for that, you can see over here, this is the packet structure. So packet structure will have the start of address, packet number, one's complement of the packet number, the packet itself, and a checksum. So the receiver will basically check for the packet number. The other thing it will check is the one's complement of the previous packet number, and it adds with the current packet number coming in, which should add up to 0, and which says that the packets are in serial and no packets are skipped. So that is the second thing checked by the receiver. The third thing which is checked by the receiver is the checksum. So checksum is basically which indicates if there was any tampering of the data done while it was transmitted, or uh, when it was after the transmission of the data. So the receiver side will make sure the packet which is coming in is correct and there is no tampering done to it. And at the end of the transmission, and at the last packet, transmitter will send an EOT signal indicating that end of transmission to the receiver, and the entire transmission of the data is done. So this is basically the X-modem file transfer protocol, which we are using from the Teratum emulator, and to transfer the file from our host machine to the microcontroller. The files are basically the binaries of any application which we want to flash into the memory to upgrade the firmware. So in Xmodem, we saw that we are doing a checksum to verify if the data packet passed from the transmitter to the receiver is correct or not. So we are doing a cyclic redundancy check for the checksum over here to validate the data received at the receiver. So what this basically does is that it divides. So in checksum, the value coming in value is divided by a fixed check value. And if the remainder of the division comes out to be 0, then the data is valid. That means it was not corrupted or tempered when it was transmitted. And in CRC, it is a polynomial division. So this is so when a binary is sent through the X-modem protocol, so the 8 bytes of the input, the starting 8 bytes of the input, and starting from the most significant bit is taken, and those are XORed with a fixed checked value. And you can see that we are using a fixed checked value, which is 0x1021 in our code, and we are dividing by the 8 bytes from the input. So this division is done, and if the remainder comes out to be 0, the data coming in is valid. Otherwise, the receiver will tell transmitter, send an NAK, or if there are multiple NAKs, it will send a CAN to cancel the transmission. So CRC is basically to check if there are any errors in the data passed. If it is completely correct, it was not tempered, a transmission is working correctly or not. And it is quite reliable as it has a mathematical formula involved, and it does a polynomial division, which is verified by researched results, and it is quite verified and also used in a couple of technologies. So we saw the explanation for the boot modes, the X-modem protocol used, and the CRC check done. The rest of the important thing, like how the booting process is and what is a linker script and what modifications we need to do to the linker script, the interrupt vector table, how is UART communication protocol, what is it, and what happens in all this would be a better explanation through the code. So we will see that next. And while demonstrating the output, we will try to explain those things, as those will clearly clarify what is done and what we are doing using those things.
Hello. Now we shall see through the code whatever we wrote. So let's see one by one. Let's close all. So if you see here in the workspace, we have like five applications. So this is our Blinky firmware update. As I told you, like it will blink very fastly. So this is like it blink for it'll make the board blink for every 1 second. So this application will blink for 1 second. And this is our bootloader project. This is our bootloader project, and this is our blinking of LED with a button interrupt. And this is the project of always on LED. So let's go with the bootloader project first. If you see here, you will be having the binaries and different include files, and this will be our core files. And if you see in the driver files, there are like two different types of drivers provided. One is called as SKIMSys. This SKIMSys drivers come directly from the ARM, and next are these STM32F3XX HAL drivers. HAL stands for Hardware Abstraction Layer. So these drivers are developed by the ST, and these are like they exposed ready to use APIs which you could use to communicate with different peripherals inside the microcontroller. If you see here, there are multiple HAL APIs. All these APIs are used in all these projects in our workspace. If you see your for each and every peripheral, there is an header file and there is a source file for the particular peripheral. For UART timers and I2C, GPIO, DMA and everything, CRC. So in our project, we'll be using the CRC peripheral, GPIO peripherals, and the SYS peripheral. SYS stand for system clock peripheral. And next, we'll be using the UART peripherals. So if you see your so our iLog project is loading. Our device is getting configured. Let's wait some time. Yeah, this is our microcontroller. As I told you, this is our main processor in our code. So these are pins configured. So we configured the UART2 peripheral as well as like UART3 peripheral. We will not be doing any flashing via UART2 peripheral, which will be basically done by the IDE and IDE. So we are using our bootloader in order to communicate with this processor via UART3 protocol and flash the firmware into the processor using this UART3. So this UART2 basically it is used by the ST. So if you want to invoke the ST's custom bootloader, you need to invoke only using the UART2 protocol. So in our case, we are developing our custom bootloader, so we could use any of the UART protocols, but we choose this UART3. These are the oscillator clocks. We are not using any external oscillator. The internal pull-up PLL clock is used for the system-driven clock. And this is our push button. And SWO stands for serial wire output. Yeah. You could, if you see here, you could configure multiple peripherals here and make the initializations in this processor. Let's see the include files in our code in our bootloader. We have this flash file, main file, and the user, the HAL APIs, HAL headers, and this UART and X modem. So in our case, we need to send packets of binary from the host machine, in our case, the computer, from like we use Teraterm software in order to do that. So in order to send these binary files, there is a particular standard followed, like called X modem protocol. Let's explore the main API. So what we will be doing here is we'll be initializing all the system clock. If you come here, these are all the APIs exposed, and these are some of our user-defined headers. If you see here, the HAL init will initialize all the HAL API peripherals. System clock config will set up all the peripheral clock. If we go into our clock configuration, this is our clock configuration table. Like it decides what is the clock that is sent to our each and every peripheral. In our case, we are using the HSI peripheral. And this will be, if you see here, this is kind of going to our all our enabled peripherals. So once we initialize all our clock, then we initialize all our GPIO init. So if you just go into this function GPIO init, you could see that we are enabling clock for the particular peripheral, and next we are writing whatever the data we want to write. We will be able to write using this all GPIO write in API. Like these are some of the configurations that we need to do. We need to set up the mode, the interrupt mode. The B1 stands for the button pin and the LED pin and all this. After we do the GPIO init, we do the USART init. So this is a USART2 protocol, USART2 peripheral. If you see here, we are setting the baud rate. Like we need to set up this, initialize this uh, structure and kind of pass to it. So we are initializing baud rate, the stop bits, and all that in this particular function. After that, we do the CRC init. The CRC peripheral is used to check for any drop in bits. So whenever we do a asynchronous transfer communication, there might be some bits dropping in between. So it checks for cyclic redundancy check. Like it kind of checks whether are there any bytes dropped in between the transmission. So later we similarly, like how we initialize this UART2, we initialize this UART3 protocol, UART3 peripheral. So once we are done, we will be basically, so this user app address variable. So this tracks the present app starting address in the ROM location. And this user app counter will kind of counts how many apps entered, how many apps were flashed. So the major thing here is that when we create these variables, when we create these as variables here, so whenever we reset the processor, all the RAM, all the stack will get cleared, right? All the RAM will get cleared. So these variables will die out. In order to store these values, what we are doing is we are writing these values into the ROM locations. ROM is a volatile memory, non-volatile memory, so we could store the values there. So if you see here, that's why the address, the macro, macro addresses, all these addresses fall into the ROM locations. So we create a pointer here and we try to change the values right into flash memory and read from the flash memory. So even though when the power is taken out from the board, it still retains these values in its ROM locations. So once we read what is the present app address, latest app address in the ROM location and the app counter, we will be later polling on for this read pin for the button. So we continuously check whether the button is pressed or not. If button is pressed, we will go into the bootloader UART read data. So it's like a bootloader mode. It jumps into the bootloader mode. If the button is not pressed, it will check, it will tell the user what are the apps till now that are flashed in, and it will ask the user input. Like here it takes the user input into the buffer and later it converts into uint32 type, and later basing on the user option, it will jump into that particular user address, like that particular app address, flash jump user app address. If there is no app present, it will tell that the app is not present. You need to go into the bootloader in order to flash it. So as I told you here, it will check. So as these initially all the ROM locations will be initialized to 0FFFF. So if you were able to check and make sure that the value is this, so it means that there is only bootloader code in the ROM location and there is no app in that. So if this condition is met, it will tell that flash is empty. You need to go into the bootloader mode in order to flash in the new app. Let's explore these APIs, bootloader UART read data and the flash jump user read data. So when there is no app or if user wants to flash in some new firmware, this function will get called. So in this function, we'll be asking the user to enter the address in the ROM locations from where you need to flash your new firmware from. So once we, so the all the UART communication will be done in byte-wise sequence. So each and every character entered by the user will come in like a sequence of bytes. So we read sequence of bytes at a time, and we kind of convert into uint32 long integer type. So we need the value in the octal form in the long integer type. That's why we use this C APIs in order to do the conversion. Once we have that new address location where the user needs to write the new app, so we need to, as I told you, we need to store these values so that even the board is, when we even reset the board, these values are retained and which could be used in order to do the further evaluation. So we'll be using this flash arrays APIs to in order to write into this flash. Like in order to write into the flash, you need to erase it first. So whenever you call this arrays API, which I implemented as like a wrapper function, so this takes in the address and the data pointer and length, how many date bytes you need to write into the flash. So it checks, it uses internally, it uses this all flash program API in order to flash into the RAM. So whenever we are writing into the flash, we need to basically unlock the flash, do our operations, and kind of lock the flash back again. So in that way, we store both this, how many apps have been downloaded into the ROM by the user, and as well as like, what is the latest app that is downloaded by the user. So we store all these into the particular memory locations. So once we have that, we call this xmodem receive. So we are ready to receive the packet of binary data from the user. Let's explore this API. So if you see here, this API kind of takes in, since this is a xmodem protocol, it's a standard protocol followed in the asynchronous communication transfer. So it takes in all the packet data, it checks whether the header file is received, and all that processing is done. So once it gets in the data, and what it does is like it calls in xmodem packet handler in order to handle those data. So this API will take the data and it will flash. If you see here, it is erasing how much flash we want. It will erase all those flash area, and later it will write into the flash. All these binaries will be written into the flash. So once it is done, once the flashing is done, so the next thing left is we need to jump into that particular user space application program. So here is the user space application jump, flash jump user API. If you see here, this this takes in the address of the ROM locations where the user app is present. As I told you before, this is our macro. If you just go into this macro expansion, you could see here that there is a user app address pointer. You are dereferencing the pointer and taking in that value. So this will tell us that what is the app stat address. So you get that address function pointer there, and you deinitialize all the HAL APIs because you are jumping into some other application. So that application will take care of initializing that peripherals. So you basically deinit all the peripherals, and you extract this starting address. Um, the starting address will consist of MSP value. So you need to set the new MSP value. So it uses this underscore set MSP API. This API comes from the basically. So once you are done, you could just simply call this function and just jump into this user app. This function pointer, you just jump into that user app application. So once you are into the user application, you will not be able to enter into the boot mode again until and unless you reset the board with user button hold pressed. Yeah, let's come back to our main function. Here, yeah, using those APIs, this entire functionality is done. Basically, even this Flash Jump user API is similar to that. This this pointer this pointer will get changed basing on how many apps are being installed. So if new app is being installed, this pointer will point to the new memory location. I will show you this APIs in the ST-Link utility as well. Let's go with the applications. So this is our first application, Blinky MSA. Like it blinks the LED for every 1 second. All these APIs and all this structure is similar, but if you go into the main API, it does the peripheral initialization, and later it calls on this GPIO toggle API given by the ST, where we will be toggling our LED. Once we compile this, we'll be having our binaries ready. But the thing to notice here is that if you want to flash it at a particular ROM locations, we need to tell the linker script in order to do that. In the linker script, we will be updating this flash origin, as well as like what is the length of this estimated length of the flash that we have. We make these particular changes in the linker script, and every application will consist of some vector addresses area. So the vector addresses is something like this. If you go into the all these APIs, all these APIs and everything will be present in the vector addresses area. These are implemented as weak so that user could override them. So all these addresses and all these IO map areas will be present in the vector addresses section area. So you need to tell the linker script that, oh, hey, you flash it from this particular memory location. And as well, so in order to do that, we just update this offset in the vector table addresses. Once we have done this, we will be able to compile this and generate the binary file. Similarly, this is our first application, and similar changes needs to be made in this linker script, as well as this system ID system core.c. In the system file, you need to make those corresponding changes. Similar, you need to mention the offset. Let's see the application written. So if you see the application here, this is this will trigger, this will toggle the LED, this basing on the button interrupt that is coming in, right? So since we are using the button interrupt, we no need to no need to keep the processor busy. So whenever an interrupt gets triggered, this in the system STM32F3XX_IT.c, you will be having something called IRQ handler. So this IRQ handler will get triggered whenever there is an interrupt on the particular button. So how do we do all this is like we map every interrupt is mapped to a particular NVIC location, EXTI line, and this EXTI line will go to that NVIC and ARM will handle that accordingly. So whenever an interrupt comes on the button, we just toggle our LED. So this is our second application. Similarly, in the third application, which is always on LED, we need to make the corresponding offset flash changes, as well as like the offset changes as I mentioned before. We need to make this corresponding table offset as well as flash changes there. In this, all the peripheral initialization is done in the similar way. But here, since we are just making the LED on, we just use this HAL GPIO right pin API in order to do this. So this is our Blinky firmware update. So this binary is used to update this previously Blinky firmware. So where this firmware blinks for 1 second, this firmware kind of blinks for every 10 milliseconds. the code implementation and the changes are similar, but the only thing is in the HAL GPIO toggle, we would reduce the delay. That's it. The delay will be like 100 milliseconds. For every 100 milliseconds it will toggle. You just reduce the HAL delay. HAL delay is a API given by the ST itself. It uses a stick timer in order to generate that delay. Yeah, once we have all these applications, we could flash in and check the working as shown in the demonstration. Let's see the ST-Link utility. This is the ST-Link utility where you could connect into the processor and see different memory locations, addresses. So if you see here, if you go into the array sectors, these are different pages that we have. Page 1, page 2, page 3, different pages. So we will be flashing, this is our entire ROM memory locations. This is the ST bootloader. If you see here, it will be connected via UART. Generally, the flashing will be done by, if you see here, this is called as a ICD. ICD stands for in-circuit debugger. This is a debug circuitry, and this will be our microcontroller. This is ARM Cortex M4 based microcontroller. It's a Nucleo F303RE board. If you see here, this blue color one is the user button, and this black color one is the reset button. If you see here, generally how do we flash the binaries is that the binaries will be sent from the PC to the ICD via UART protocol, and then this debugger circuitry will directly flash that binaries into the ROM locations of this processor. So, but the thing with the bootloader is that we could use directly bootloader in order to communicate it with the processor and flash the binaries via UART. If you see here, this is our USB to UART converter. So the binaries, instead of getting flashed from the ICD, we will be able to flash the binaries from the UART protocol of the microcontroller. This is a standard bootloader given by the ST. In order to activate this bootloader, there will be some configurations given in the user manual. According to this Nucleo board, we should make the boot 0 and boot 1 pin high. So whenever we make this boot 0 and boot 1 pin high, the inside ST bootloader will get triggered up. So the ST bootloader will be able to communicate only with the UART2 protocol. So we are selecting the UART2 here, and when you click on next, we have to reset the board whenever we reconnect the board. So yeah, if you see here, the target is readable. So this bootloader help us to flash into the microcontroller via UART protocol. So this is the standard bootloader given by the ST. See, if you see here, you could see the number of pages. In our case, we have 255 pages. Each page is of 2K bytes. So you could flash 512 kilobytes of memory into it. So the options given by the ST bootloader are like you could select any binary file and flash it to any memory locations. You could erase any part of the program, or you could jump to any user space program, or you could upload any file. Also, you could give the write protections and read protections for a particular sector of the memory. So in this project, we are trying to basically build our own custom bootloader from scratch. Yeah, let's see the demonstration first. Let's see the flow of our project. Whenever you reset the board, it first checks, is there any previous firmware that is flashed into the board? If yes, then it will check, is the user button pressed or not. if the user button is not pressed, it will run the previous firmware whichever is flashed, and it will just execute that app. Let's say if the button is pressed, then it will go into the bootloader mode, and it will ask which firmware to flash, and like which memory, from which memory location onwards you need to flash your new firmware. Then it will flash that binary. It performs some arrays operations, and then it updates the firmware, and then it executes the app. If you see, even in the normal operating systems, so whenever we try to boot up the system, the bootloader will get executed first, and it loads up the Windows operating system or whatever operating system we have. For example, if you want to dual boot your system, or like if you want to boot your computer with some other software, what we do is, at the booting process itself, we press our F7 key or some other key in the keyboard and enter into the bootloader options, and we change the from where onwards we need to flash our ROM locations, right? This works in the similar way like that. Okay, if you see here, this is a ST-Link utility software. Let's connect to our board. Let's clean erase the board. When you clean erase the board, it clears all the ROM locations. All the code memory is will get cleared up. Yeah. Now let's run our bootloader project. So if you see here, if you see here, our bootloader project is getting flashed into our microcontroller. Let's communicate. Yeah, let's communicate with our board using the UART protocol. So if you see here, the COM4 is my UART converter, USB to UART converter. So instead of talking to my microcontroller using the standard ICD, I'm talking with my microcontroller using this converter, right? As I specified earlier. Come here. Yeah, let's set up the baud rate. And so in our case, the baud rate is 38400, and let's set up the local echo as well. Yeah, let's reset the board, because we might have missed the previous messages. Yeah, when we reset the board, this is the thing that the board sent to us. It is telling that present the flash is empty. Press the enter button to go into the bootloader mode. Yeah. Now it's asking us from which starting address onwards we need to flash our new firmware from. So let's say these are our 3 applications. So in our case, we'll be flashing 3 applications. So from this memory location onwards, our bootloader code will be flashed in. So at the 100th page, that is at this location, we'll be flashing our app 1. Similarly, app 2 will be flashed at 150th page, and app 3 will be flashed at 200th page. Let's enter the app first app address 0x080 You must make sure that all these locations are in between our microcontroller vendor specified ranges. Yeah, now it's asking us to send a new binary file. So let's transfer the new binary file. So as I said, let's transfer. In our case, the first thing is the blinky LED firmware is what we need to flash in. So yeah, the firmware is getting flashed up into that sectors. Yeah, it's jumping into the user space application program. If you see here, the application is running right now. Okay, in order to flash another application at a different memory location, we need to make sure that this user button is pressed when you are resetting the board. This is similar to pressing the F7 button in order to go into the bootloader mode in our standard systems. It's similar to like that. Now it is asking me for a new address to flash the firmware. So let's flash the firmware from this address location, the second address location. It's 0x080 4B 000. Yeah, now it is asking for the bin file. Let's send the bin file. So yeah, now the new firmware is getting, the second app is getting flashed up. Now it is jumping to that new application. So the new application is a interrupt based LED triggering. So whenever we press this user button, an interrupt is kind of generated, and on the EXTI line of the controller, the EXTI line interrupt will goes to the NVIC processor, and the NVIC will handle all these external interrupts. So whenever we press a button, the LED will get toggled. So all this is done via interrupt and not as like a blocking call. Yeah, this is our second application. Now let's flash our third application at this particular memory location. So in order to go into that application, in order to flash the new app, as I told you before, we need to hold the user button and then reset the microcontroller. Now it is asking for the new address to flash from. 0x080 64,000. Yeah, the new firmware is getting flashed up. The third app is getting flashed up. If you see here, the third app is like always on LED. So this app just turns on the LED. Now let's see what are all the applications that are present in our code space right now. So when I just reset the microcontroller, it will tell me how many total apps are present in my ROM locations. It either asks as well, like which app to run right now. Let's say we want to run our first application, that is toggling of the LED. Blinking of the LED. Yeah, now the LED is getting blinked. Similarly, if you want to go into the second or third application, let's just reset the processor. Now it will ask me like which app to run right now. Let's say we want to run the third application. The third application is always on LED. Lastly, let's try to run the second application. So right now, let's run the second application. The second application is an interrupt based LED toggling. Yeah, if you see here, it is working as well. So these are the total memory locations. So as a pictographically, if you see here, if this is our total ROM locations, bootloader will be flashed first, and some memory location onwards app 1 will get flashed. Similarly, we have the app 2 as well as app 3. This is our bootloader code. Let's say we want to update this application 1. As I told you before, the application 1 is a toggling, is a blinking of LED. If you see previously, it is blinking for 1 second, like kind of going slowly. Okay, I'll demonstrate that once more again. Let's run our first application. So if you see here, the LED is toggling for every 1 second slowly, right? Let's see it for a minute. Yeah. Now let's say we want to update this new application. So in order to update this new application, let's go into the bootloader mode. As I told you, let's hold the user button and go into the reset mode. So it'll ask me which one to update. So let's update the first application. So in my case, the first application is located at this particular memory location. Let's type in the memory address. So it's asking for the new firmware to flash. So this is my updated firmware. If you see here, the application, the firmware, the first application is updated. See, if you see here, it is toggling at very high rate. If you just hit the reset button, it will again ask us to show it. It will show which apps to run.